Hi, everybody. Welcome to Broad Banter. We're so glad you're here. My name is Jahan Corbin.
And I'm Lynn Haddad.
Lynn and I are both affiliated with the organization Breast Cancer Recovery in Action. Our acronym is BRA, so we encourage all the supportive puns there. We are also both breast cancer survivors and eager to share Broad Banter with you today. We've got a great guest that's going to share some of her expertise with us. But first, just if you're not familiar with Bra, I wanted to encourage you to check out our website at bragroups.org, bragroups.org. We provide resources for those navigating breast cancer at any point in their journey, in treatment, just out of treatment, even 10 to 25 years post treatment. We do that in a variety of ways. We provide exercise classes in a group setting with a personal trainer, and that's twice a week in a small group setting. And then we also offer nutritional classes with a registered dietitian who provides healthy habits to our members at no cost. She's a great resource for us. And then we do emotional wellness, where we get together in a small group and work through a curriculum that's written specifically for people who have navigated breast cancer with two facilitators who are survivors themselves. That really is a great opportunity to process some of the emotions that come with a diagnosis like this one. And then the fourth component of our program is just education, which kind of runs throughout all of those three components that I just mentioned. But Broad Banter is a perfect example of some of the education that we provide. All of this is at no cost to our members, and we just are happy to share topics that are relevant and interesting and hopefully value added and educational for those folks who are navigating breast cancer. So we are very, very glad you're here. And if you want more information, please go to broadgroups.org. I'm going to turn it over to Lynn and let her introduce today's speaker.
Okay, thank you, Jahan. We are thrilled to be talking to Monica Guirguis, who is the founder of Full Body Pharmacy. And Monica has several attributes that I'd like to mention to you all. She's originally from Atlanta, Georgia, where she did her undergrad and pharmacy school at Florida A&M in Tallahassee. Her mom was a pharmacist, so she went into the family business. And her mom was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer when Monica was 17. So she learned a lot about breast cancer up close and personal, which we're sorry that you had to go through that, Monica. Um, Monica married a year ago a retired vet and has relocated to the Tennessee area and currently lives in Clarksville, Tennessee. And if you've watched other banters, you will know that we always like to kick off our session with a fun fact about our esteemed guest. And so Monica's fun fact is that she and her husband consider their two dogs to be their kids, which, if you've watched other banters, you also know that Jahan and I consider our dogs to be our favorite children. She has two. I have two, and they're our cooperative children who give us unconditional love.
They're the ones who listen to us and obey us.
So we're right there with you, Monica.
That's
So,
amazing.
would you like to share anything about your special dogs or how you came to found Full Body Pharmacy with us, Monica?
Sure, sure. Thank you guys so much for having me here. I'm really honored to be here having this conversation with you guys. Just yeah, quick thing. Both my dogs are Belgian Malinois. If you are familiar with that breed, they're highly energetic and need a lot of playtime, but they're also like majorly attached to you. They're just like not happy outside of your presence. And so it's really lovely, and they really do make our lives full and complete. So um and yeah, I came to find you guys. Or sorry, so we wanted to start with me on how I founded Full Body Pharmacy. Okay, let's start there.
Okay.
Um, so I was a traditional pharmacist working in regular retail slash community pharmacy for about 10 years. And all the while, though, I, always felt a pull to just in general, like more holistic health and focusing on diet and exercise and just kind of basic concepts like that initially when this started. And so, it actually started while I was in pharmacy school. But about even rewinding from there a little bit, as you mentioned, I got introduced to having being face to face with breast cancer through my mom being diagnosed when I was 17. And so I was actually in my last semester of high school deciding on a career path and what I was going to do. And as you mentioned, my mom was a pharmacist. I'm actually a third generation female pharmacist. My mom's mom was also a pharmacist in
Really
Egypt.
cool. So
Yeah.
Wow.
cool.
Yeah, which was like really rare for her time. Like my mom talked about how like she was like one of three women like in her pharmacy school class, and now it's so interesting how in just my life in her life, she's only just passed a couple years ago, but now, you look up the statistic, it's like over 60%, if not 70% of pharmacy students are female. So it's so interesting to see how that's like switched. Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, that definitely fell into the family line of just going into healthcare, medical in general. But when my mom got diagnosed, it was truly my first exposure to just how important diet and exercise was. Up until that point, it wasn't a thought, not only just because I'm young, but I just grew up on the standard American diet, didn't think much of it. And neither did my mom, probably, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
my family immigrated from Egypt to the States in around the 70s. And so, their priority was just assimilating to American culture. So by the time I came around, in the 90s, they were kind of already fully in that swing of trying to just be whatever is considered a regular American citizen. Um, so anyway, through going through the process of her in her diagnosis, like I said, I went into my own individual research now, like different exposures I had. The very first thing I can remember is like watching the Food Inc. documentary when that came out like 20 years ago, and I just was like, I didn't, like I said, that was like me, like many others seeing it was just first time to understanding like the food industry, and there the ball, it was just a snowball effect after that of article after article and then study after study coming across more holistic medicine. And at this point, I'm like in full fledged in pharmacy school. And so I was already too late into the program to like switch careers, but I knew that in my future that I wanted to step into focusing on people's health beyond medication. And so there's of course a lot of details in there that I'm skipping, but fast forward to now where a couple years ago had the courage to finally leave my traditional job and take a leave of absence and spend time recovering from being a pharmacist in a traditional setting. And then last summer I was able to start Full Body Pharmacy, which is now more of a functional medicine practice and focuses on all levels of health, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual.
I love that. And so, if you don't mind getting telling us a little bit more about how do you integrate? I mean, I love that you, like you said, had the courage. It takes a lot of courage to start something new like you did. But you did work for several years, I think, in a traditional pharmacy setting. So, how does that background, how do you integrate that into what you're doing now?
Yeah, it's a really good question. The how it's integrated is that I don't see medication as bad. I never wanted when I stepped out of the what we call now traditional or modern medicine. I never wanted to ostracize that part of healthcare or medicine because I think it very much has its role. I think modern medicine does an amazing job of life-saving modalities, and we kind of there's nothing to really replace that, like getting into a broken bone, for example, or having a minor infection. Back then a minor infection killed, that was a death sentence, to somebody. So so modern medicine is so great. So I never stepping out of that traditional setting, I never wanted to get rid of that. How I view it now is that I stand kind of in the center of a room of being able to see all the different modalities of more holistic alternatives, more energetic alternatives, but in combination with the understanding of like basic chemistry and biology, and how where at the point do they all overlap with each other, and how can we use all the modalities and tools that are available to us to get somebody to what they want as a healthy system. And really how I see it when people come to me. It doesn't matter how many medications are on your list. If you're on prescription medications, it doesn't matter. We can start to see like, okay, maybe there are some things you don't need anymore. Or this is, you're taking this from a side effect from when, or like whatever. We can look at all of that combined, especially with people who are seeing multiple doctors and they don't necessarily communicate well with each other. I'm really like that advocate or liaison for a person coming to me to be able to see um, everything that's being prescribed to them and where do you want to go with this? Like, is something was one of these saving your life, or can we work over time to decrease it? Whatever the person's wanting. So it's in combination with everything I do
Mhm.
still.
Mhm. So, how do patients usually find you? Like, I mean, it sounds like you take a lot of fulfillment, right, from working with them and helping them find their goals. So, where is it that a person would usually come across you?
Sure. Based on I'm working on it, to be honest with you. I'm still like
Yeah.
less than a year in. And so a lot of the people that have found me have been through word of mouth.
Uh-huh.
I joined a co-working space with where I'm at right now called the Healing Society in Nashville. And that's right now primarily how people are finding me. There's a director we have, and then the other members here are meeting me and getting to know what I do and then talking about it with other people. And so that's right now the main way that people are finding me is through the Healing Society. And then I'm currently working with a marketing person to kind of give me all the steps to push me along for finding me online more.
Mm-hmm. Can I follow up? Was your mom your first client, so to speak? Like, did you, when you saw her, when you were going through, right, pharmacy school? Because she was a breast cancer patient, and I can attest as one. There were a lot of medications coming, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of side effects and issues. Did you start like thinking through some of these ideas when you were watching your mom, or did you maybe get some of the ideas later when you were thinking back to what you saw?
It was definitely later because when
Okay.
my mom was going through it, I was so fresh
Right.
into the information, and I was also like 18, what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I was like super young. Yeah, young and dumb and just like, going through the thing. And no, like I said, I just didn't know this stuff at the time. Like
Right,
what I
of
know
course.
now, of course, I did not know then. So even then, like supplementation right now is like a core piece of what I do, but I didn't know anything about supplements back, when my mom was going through it.
Right.
Mhm.
And then to be honest with you, um, even currently, my mom would not be one of my patients or clients because um, one, our family members don't like to listen to what we have
Right.
to say. But over the years, and I'm very open and honest about this. Like throughout the years, like I experimented a lot on myself, especially through diet, especially through diet. So, tried the vegan route, tried the juice fast, tried the keto route, tried the everything. And when I would come home from school, like on summer breaks and stuff, I was like on a whole other different diet from the last summer my mom started. You know what I'm
Uh-huh.
saying? And so
Been there.
at some point, it was like, whatever new thing she's coming, about to go away in 6 months. So why would we? I would try. Of course, I would like, I would tell them all about it. Look at like this is why this is
Sure.
good and blah blah blah. And nothing really stuck with them. And so, yeah, I definitely took a very different path to health than my family.
Yeah. Well, and I was gonna say the fact that she's a pharmacist too, not only is she your family member, but it's like you're working against a couple of things, trying to tell her what to do, right? Like well,
Exactly.
you mentioned we're skipping a little bit, but you mentioned how important supplementation is
Yeah.
to you, and I want to get into that because, for our members who have experienced breast cancer, um, they're depending on where they are, that and you've experienced this up close just watching your mom, but there's a lot that chemo and some of the medications that we take and just surgery in general, radiation, all of it. There's just a lot of things that really um, deplete our bodies of everything, really.
Hmm.
So I would just love to hear you share more about your thoughts on things that are helpful in terms of supplementation, particularly after a treatment like breast cancer.
Yeah, absolutely. I was so glad you guys are asking this question because it's so critical post treatment and even during treatment, just to comment on that real quick, like supplementation can make your chemo experience or your treatment experience very different. It's just, again, it literally in the word, it's supplementing what's going on, but the post chemo care for sure is, again, something I did not think about as being an important piece. I did not know about it then. I'm thinking about it now in retrospect. But the most, if there was a list that I could say is probably the most important for after chemo care would be a high quality multivitamin, preferably one that has already methylated B vitamins. And what methylation is basically it's already a process that your body, when you take a vitamin, your body has to go through a certain chemical process to even utilize that vitamin. If you get something that's already methylated, it kind of like takes out one of those steps. So as soon as you take it, your cells can already easily take it in without having to go through a certain step. And so what that allows for, especially like, as you guys know, and I hope I'm not repeating too much information that I'm sure you've already discussed on here in the past, but, chemo, it's not specific to a cancer cell. That's not how the medication works. That's not actually not how most medications work, especially chemo doesn't go specifically to a cancer cell. That's what modern research continues to develop and get better at. But right now we're not there. What it does is it targets any fast growing cell, as you know. So that's why the losing of the hair and the skin changes and your nails, kind of go soft and stuff because the chemo is pulling back on that any fast growth process. So basically after chemo, the cells are depleted. Like they're just super tired. They're depleted of every nutrient because any system in the cellular process that's fast, chemo is going to pull back on that. So that's going to include even at baseline vitamins and nutrients coming in and out of the cell. That's going to be kind of slow down and in recovery. So that methylated B vitamins in a proper multivitamin can be used just to regenerate baseline energy function in a cell. On top of that, the next thing would be vitamin D with K is also massive. And you never want to be taking vitamin D by itself. It needs to always be supplemented by vitamin K. So vitamin D again is going to be huge. It's going to help with fatigue. And it's usually, just because most of us don't spend time outside in the sun like we used to or should, most people who are not even, gone through chemo or breast cancer survivors are already low. So we're going to need to address that's already going to be depleted. And then omega-3s are going to be massive for replenishing healthy fat, which will then downstream into regulating cholesterol and then therefore hormones, and also going to help with inflammation. And again, most people, even though they might be on a fish oil supplement, a lot of times the quality isn't great and the dose isn't high enough. So that's going to be another thing. So with omegas, you want to, for a proper anti-inflammatory effect, you want to be taking about 2 grams a day.
Can
Go
I
ahead.
ask a question?
Yeah.
How does one discern if their vitamins are methylated or not? I've never even heard that word before.
It'll actually say it on the back, and the main one you're looking for that they usually methylate is B vitamins and folate. And so it'll say methylfolate.
Really? Okay.
Like you have to look at, it'll be on the back. And yeah. And if the vitamin itself, if you research it, it should say, they'll advertise that it's a methylated B vitamin or folate. Yeah.
And these are all available over the counter?
No.
Oh,
That's a
okay.
big thing. Yeah. If I could say, okay, I could say this now because I don't work for the retail company anymore, but swear to God that every time somebody would come buy a regular fish oil over the counter and bring it, I'd be like, here's a website that has better quality. Don't buy it. I'll be honest with you, like in general, I can't say it for every single company that's sitting on a shelf at a retail store, but most of them that you're finding at your regular over-the-counter places, retail are gonna be pretty poor quality or not high enough dosage. I'm just gonna say that at general. There's a great website called FullScript that you do have to go through a provider that is in there, but that places like FullScript are going to be a great place to go to trust that the quality of everything they sell on that website is of highest quality and has been tested and third-party testing and all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing they have a higher price point. Is that why they're not
Actually, no.
available
To
in
be
retail stores, or why would
That's
they not be
you would
sold at
think.
retail?
You would think, but actually they're not. There's plenty of companies out there that are just making, not fancy bottle, looking supplements that are sold on full, like the multivitamin that I recommend to all my people, that's from there that has the methylated B and folate. I mean, we're talking about a 90-day supply is like 20 something dollars. Like it's not,
Wow.
yeah, it's not that
Hey,
high.
that's good news.
It
Yeah,
is good news,
Yeah.
but it's
Surprising.
just surprising, right?
Surprising,
That
yeah.
why would large retailers not want to sell them?
I know.
I guess I don't know.
So Monica, you're talking about like when I'm hearing you speak about like the vitamin D and vitamin K and omega 3s and those kinds of things. I mean, I know we hear a lot about, I guess my question is, in your experience, is that in addition to whatever we're getting on our diet? Like if somebody is trying to eat more fish and, do more of those things naturally, like through the food that they're consuming, do you find that people still need additional supplements?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. At this point in the game, and what I mean by the game is where we are in as a world and with the food system and water system and air. There's just so much pollution and so much depletion in the soil in our food system, that it doesn't, like, if you were the most quality food person that ate everything, the best of your
Perfectly.
ability to find perfectly organic, blah, 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 you still would not be getting the amount of nutrients from those foods simply because of the depletion of the soil. And it's really just that.
And we are the most perfect.
Oh yeah, we're clearly, Lynn and I are the ones. Here's
I believe you.
Yes, right here. Yeah.
I believe you.
I love that she laughed. She knows we're joking. She's like, yeah, not these two. I may or may not have had Easter candy for breakfast. Okay, look away. Nothing to see here.
Cadbury eggs are eggs. What are you talking about?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I know. So yeah, I like to say these days that like supplementation isn't a luxury anymore for any of us. It just isn't. And that's again another point to like why I appreciate modern science. Like we need these things created in a lab, like to supplement us, like as the name implies. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
All right. So next question is, say, I'm somebody who's interested in working with you. What's like your approach to a new patient? Like what's, getting on to brass tacks? How do you approach
Sure.
integrating modern medicine with your process?
Sure. So how it starts is even before somebody comes to see me for our first initial consultation, which is a 2-hour sit down, they go to get an extensive lab work drawn, and that price is included in the program with me. And it's through Function Health for anybody who's familiar with that. It's a company that Dr. Mark Hyman started. He's a really well-known functional medicine doctor. And it's a beautiful system they built of you just getting a date on the calendar, going to Quest Diagnostics, getting lab drawn, and the results coming back in a couple of weeks. And then you're getting labs done that, I mean, I've never seen a doctor actually order half of these labs that you're actually getting able to get drawn through Function Health, nor would insurance ever cover it. So the data that comes back from that usually then ends up matching, what the patient is telling me in terms of like their symptoms or what it is they're experiencing. And so with that, of course, there's an intake form where I get to learn all kinds of things about you. Like I'm even asking about like, have you ever had amalgam mercury fillings in your mouth, or, experience like a bunch of family history and, a bunch of things. And I get to look at that all up front before even meeting with the person to see where are things matching of like, hey, you're complaining about this symptom. Well, it's probably due to this inflammation marker that's going off over here. So I take that and then we get to go through it together. And from there, I'm getting to hear a lot of the person's story across from me, which is usually what's lacking and what they've never had before. Is like the doctor doesn't actually really know them. Like you want to know about the person's lifestyle. You want to know if the changes that you're about to make with them are actually going to stick. Because if something is not sustainable, then there's literally no point in doing it. So that's kind of how the general process works. Initially, I'm giving you a lot of education up front. A prime example I can give is like I do focus a lot on hormone health, especially with women. And the first thing I show them in the education section is the the cycle of how your estrogen and progesterone across the 28-day cycle. And I'm telling you guys, like every single woman I've sat down and showed this to, I showed them the chart. I'm like, have you ever seen this? And the answer is no.
Mm.
I mean, I'm having, women coming to me and telling me that they didn't even know they were going into menopause because they didn't understand that hormone cycle. So the education piece is really, really important because it allows the person to actually have some advocacy in their treatment and really understand what's going on with them unlike ever before. From there, we then have follow-up consultations once a month, 1 hour consultations, and in between that time, they have access to me through a HIPAA secure app where they can be asking me questions or, I'm constantly coming across new research. We are just talking about supplements. I'll always end up finding the next best supplement, like just a vitamin D supplement. So I'll get to text you and say, hey, switch over to this thing because it's going to be better. So there's constant communication in a relationship. I tell people we're taking a journey together. That's what this is. I'm just standing by right beside you and holding your hand through the process.
Mm. I love that. One thing we did a couple of prep calls with you, kind of trying to get to know you and learn more about your business, which was a lot of fun prior to this recording today. And one thing that you said that I noted, because you mentioned at the beginning about how you're encompassing a comprehensive holistic approach in both physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, I think is what you said. And one thing that stood out to me when you were talking about the services you provide and just kind of using your background and your expertise in helping people on these journeys is that you see disease not as an opportunity to see all that's wrong with people,
Mhm.
but as a different opportunity. Could you kind of talk about that a little bit? Because I thought that was unique.
Yeah, a quick deep breath before that one. Because I know, cancer is like such an emotionally involved disease, you know, um, in just the experience. I don't even mean just the literal disease itself. Um, and so from what I've seen for people, and I'm being so curious to hear y'all's experience too with what you went through of like, it's so easy to say like, what did I do wrong? Like, how could this have happened to me? Like, I thought I was healthy. I'm young. I'm what, fill in the blank. Like, that's what I mean by the emotional component of this. And so, um, I like to get people to see that what we're calling disease is to me more messaging. It's more of a message from the body of like, there's not actually something wrong with you. It's actually maybe sometimes a reminder of how amazing your body is. And you might have just forgotten that. And I love to steer people back to realizing like how incredible and self-healing their bodies can actually be. And that sometimes the dis-ease, the out of sync that we then classify as a diagnosis is just a message for I'm sure you guys know, but for most women, especially as it pertains to breast cancer, it's like it was a force of a pause in your life. Sometimes it's like it's a thing that made you slow down because you had to now. And so maybe that's I'm just using that as one example of like how this can be seen as a messaging and a bringing back to wholeness and not necessarily just seeing this as a thing that showed me what was wrong with them, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and from an emotional standpoint, one thing that we talk about in broad groups is not being defined by our diagnosis.
Mhm.
It's a very much
Exactly.
now a part of our story and really always will be from now on, but it does not mean that it has to define us. One of our members actually recently said to us, and I thought this was so clever and true, you have cancer, cancer does not have you, and that
There
really
you
is
go.
sort of the outlook that you're describing. I think that's a very important shift in our emotional mindset in terms of the way that we look at this.
Yeah. Now, one thing I will ask you though is, so it's a pretty involved process, right? Working with you and going through these results. I mean, do some of your clients feel maybe a little overwhelmed? Like, because we do come across people, particularly in our emotional wellness groups, who feel like after this diagnosis, they have to toe the line perfectly, right? We've had people who are tracking every single glass of wine, who have like, their list of supplements, and it's a lot of pressure, right? To feel like they have to be perfect. And so how do you work through that with people in terms of the body is an amazing thing and it can be healing, but striking like the healthy balance between living life, right? That we work so hard to be here to enjoy
Mhm.
and still like, maintaining that health that we all want. Like that
Yeah.
emotional, it's a lot, right, in people's head. And I would
Yeah.
imagine you come across that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really glad you asked that. Because like you said, it's like life is meant to be lived, not just to, be perfect about everything. It's really not even the point. And so I'll start by saying that that's why I work with people over a lengthy period of time, because it does take that long.
Mhm.
One, to just get back into balance, but two, to really change certain behaviors and patterns and lifestyle things long term. Like I said, if it's not sustainable, forget it. Like as soon as I make a recommendation to somebody and I see this happen, I'm like, forget it. I don't do
Yeah,
anything.
yeah,
We're
yeah,
so
yeah,
next to leave.
yeah,
Like we're not gonna, type of
yeah.
thing. Because that's exactly the type of individualized healthcare experience that I'm trying to give somebody.
Mhm.
So to answer your question more directly, how do I do that? That's why working with me is either on a 6 month or 12 month basis, so
Mhm.
that we can take things slowly. You
Mhm.
know, I'm if you come to me and there's the big, okay, health things that are happening. Like you said, I can't get you to change 8 things at one time. Like it's impractical. So let's break it up into phases. Okay, month 0 to 2, we're going to just do this thing. Report back to me how you feel.
Mhm.
Okay. And that's why there's that, the being able to communicate on a weekly basis so that we can see what needs to be changed or not changed. Then we go in, phase 2, 3, 4, and so on of like, okay, we're going to make these small changes. And once the person experiences even feeling a little bit better just in the first phase, that's what gives them the motivation to then make the next and the next and the next. So I actually had to learn that through the recent experience of starting Full Body Pharmacy and just like dumping all this information, like you said, on people and like, here's all the education, here's the 10 supplements that you needed to buy, and the exercise routine and the hydrate is was too much. And
Too
that was
much.
the
Yeah.
feedback I was getting from people. It was
Yeah.
exactly your question. And so it made me learn as I go of like making the first session, especially really a lot simpler and digestible,
Mhm.
and giving them just like 3 homework things that are like super easy to do. And most of them are just taking a supplement.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
Yeah.
that's it. And that is now I'm seeing the positive feedback of like that actually sticking with people. And
Mhm.
that's what I'm going for. I don't want any short term change. It doesn't do any good.
Mhm.
So yeah, I hope that answers that question.
No, yeah, that's great. I mean, breast cancer treatment is not one and done. Neither is
Right.
neither
Yeah,
is healing. I mean, really, that's to your point. We're playing the long game here, and it's kind of like because you can't. One appointment is just too much. That was a great question. Too much of the overwhelm at
Wow.
the beginning.
So
So
you could do this and you could still have your Easter
I could
candy
eat
for breakfast
perfectly right.
for at least
totally.
6 months.
Listen, I'll give up Easter candy. I will not give up my occasional wine and charcuterie. I will not give it up. I will not.
We have deal
That's
breakers.
right. That's right. I draw the line.
All right. We have to
So
keep moving.
okay, you shared with us earlier in one of our prep calls that you personally had experienced a prolonged period of time where you did not feel well enough to exercise. And so let's talk about the exercise piece of your program, kind of how you discovered, you call it, I think, low pressure fitness modality and the impact that it provided in your movement, and overall energy level.
Yeah.
I was not familiar with
Yeah,
that. So if you want to
Yeah,
kind of
it's
educate us on what
both
it
of
is.
sure.
us, and
Yeah.
it sounds really great because many people finishing treatment have a lot of aches, a lot of pains, a lot of
Mhm.
low energy.
Mhm.
So it does
Yeah,
sound like something that could really appeal.
yeah, absolutely. Um, and actually, before I just real quick before I dive into that, I just wanted to say like there's a whole other those vitamins and supplements we talked about at the beginning. There's like a whole not that I mean a few more that I would recommend just in terms of
Oh,
energy
okay.
because you just
Okay.
happened to mention it.
Okay.
Yes.
And so a big one I'll say is NAC. I don't know if you guys heard, it's called N-acetylcysteine. And that helps with the detox and glutathione production, which glutathione is just another um, is it a oh, I'm being challenged on my knowledge here. I'm like, is it a vitamin? Is it a hormone? I'm not sure. But it is a major role in energy production in the
Oh.
mitochondria of the cell.
Could you
So
say it
another,
one more time, please, the name of it?
yeah, glutathione, Glutathione. And the reason I wanted to rewind on that real quick is because supporting gut health post chemo is huge. And I think it's something that people don't actually realize is because again, back to the fast growing cell, your gut lining is another place in the body where there's fast growing cells. And so that really gets damaged after chemo. And
Mhm.
people usually experience, the whole leaky gut syndrome of like the lining of their intestines is not able to keep large particles inside. And so they leak out and cause an inflammation reaction in the body. And so, focusing on a good probiotic, again, sorry, not the ones you're going to find at a retail store. Um, and glutathione. So glutathione can be given via an injection and actually can also be given IV. And that would be huge for breast cancer survivors after treatment because it bypasses the gut completely and will be able to just go straight to the cell that like you want it to do. And yeah, glutathione is really amazing in that way. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure I said that gut health is big. And that's of course a big key point that I work on with my people as well.
Sure.
Okay,
Okay.
low pressure fitness and me. Okay, so yeah, a few years ago, you know, I mean, you guys know, like in your 20s, like you can be sick and like keep going. Like you can just like forget it, but you just have a high tolerance for stuff. It's just an age thing. Like you could just keep going. And so I would say that because I probably had a bunch of these symptoms, like negative health symptoms even then, but I just wasn't paying attention to it. And I'm new in my pharmacy career and that kind of thing. Well, I got my first full-time position and the stress of the retail environment kind of triggered for the first time me actually noticing like, holy crap, like I do not feel well. I'm having chronic bloating, like terrible irregularity in bowel movements, like my skin's breaking out, like all this stuff. And so I, kept going on in life, didn't, try to manage it on my own. And even with my own knowledge, science background, I still wasn't able to figure out the root cause of what was going on with me and be able to treat it properly. And I, like many people, tried a million different diets, like I mentioned earlier, a million different supplements, and nothing. It would help. Something would help for a short time and then stop after that. So several years go on of this like going on and a bit untreated and it just kept getting worse and worse. And eventually, like right at the time around in the year 2020, like my body like finally got to that point where it crashed, like kind of ran into a wall and couldn't recover. And what I mean by that is like my nervous system, first and foremost, was so whacked out. That whole term that people are a bit more familiar with, that like being wired and tired, like no amount of sleep was giving me, making me feel rested. Like I couldn't, my whole life eventually was revolving around how many hours I could sleep in a day. Like that's all I wanted to do. And so after that went on for so long, I just, that emotional toll it takes on you of like, you're like semi young, but like I'm not functioning like at all, really, is what it feels like. And I, reached the point where like I honestly didn't want to live anymore. I was like, this is no life to be living. And throughout that time, what happened at the latter end was that I got so my nervous system was so dysregulated that even exercise started making me feel worse than better, because obviously your heart rate has to go up and stuff, and your body does have to naturally work harder and produce cortisol, which is normal and natural for exercise. But if you're already elevated and you go and exercise, man, you kick that system into overdrive. And then that's what people talk about. Like, it took me, it would, every time I would go exercise, I'm recovering for 72 hours. Eventually I'm recovering for a whole week. And I'm like, what the, I can't, again, can't live like this. So like, I stopped exercising. And that went on for 3 years. Like, I couldn't do like proper physical activity. And I eventually hit another rough bottom, and that was when I quit my job and took a leave of absence and moved away and moved to a beach town where I could like walk more and just be close to water and closer to nature and just recover. And once I did that in the place I was in, I was complaining to a friend about this chronic tightness in the body that I was experiencing, of course, having not moved properly in that many years. And I just was like so stiff and tight all the time, everywhere. And she was like, hey, I think you really need to go meet this trainer. Her name is Blanca, and she's trained in low pressure fitness. And I was like, whatever. It was one of those things like, I'll do whatever. So I go to her, and literally the first like couple of months, like months, not even the first few seconds, months of me working with her, all she was having me do was learn how to breathe with my rib cage moving side to side. That was all she was teaching me to do, was how to do that. And she would put my body in like different static holding positions and then tell me to repeat that breath again. That was all she was having me do. And without even understanding what in the world was going on, it was finally for the first time I was having that feeling, what people say, like I was coming back into my body. And what made me a key moment of like, this happened several months into working with her, that clicked was like, I was like, oh, all these years prior to this, I had been working very diligently on my healing. I was, being a therapist for mental health. I was focusing on how my emotions were affecting things, and going back into past traumas and getting back in touch with like my spiritual health and who God was to me and all that stuff. But I wasn't moving my body. And so it wasn't until, like I said, several months in of actually mobilizing my body. So guys, forget exercise at this point. We're just talking about mobilization, okay? That I realized that without this movement, my other areas of healing reached a stopping point where it was a stall, where because the body wasn't on board also with the healing process, I wasn't actually moving. I wasn't continuing to get better. So the movement piece became just honestly life-saving, of like what it actually felt like to be in my body again and feel different parts, and of course not be as stiff and have more energy slowly but slowly, and just breathing better, so that my cells were just getting more oxygen, the brain's getting more oxygen, that is improving my mood. Like it just, and it was a very slow process, but it was working. And so after about a year of being on the client side of this, I was like, I have to bring this into how I help people in the future, because you could say that, well, I already had the physical piece of full body pharmacy, of course, from like the chemistry, biology, medication side, but that's not movement. And so now low pressure fitness, now I'm a trainer in it, becomes a critical piece of what it means to address the physical as we look at everything else. Yeah. I don't want to talk for too long, but you did want to hear what is low pressure fitness.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. That was very
Yeah.
fascinating. And
We're
really,
just like listening.
I know, and just how you got there. Thank you for kind of explaining like your own personal journey to get there, because that's usually what drives us to look for something new, right? When something's not working.
So as you progressed, what things did you do beyond, like, did you start moving more? You continue doing the breathing with other actions? Is that how it went, or?
You could, yeah, you could. For me, I still, as a student myself, I just continue the workout itself. This will be a good segment to explain what it is, but I end up, there's no ending to how it can progress, is what I'm trying to say. So it's
Okay.
one of those workouts that you can do for the rest of your life, and you can continuously make it more challenging to continue to grow muscularly in the breathing capacity, all the things. So for me, I'm still very much a student of continuously to progress and how challenging I can make this for myself. So that's kind of how I ended up progressing more into exercise now.
Uh-huh.
But then, yeah, to your point, I did end up going, being able to take a yoga class again or go on a hike or whatever other modalities of fitness people want to add for sure. It's an amazing supplement to any other exercise you do and can also be used on its own as a very low intensity type workout.
Hmm.
Um,
Once again,
and
it
so
depends on the goals, the person's goal,
exactly,
right?
exactly. And the body, right? It has on the body. So it's like some people don't need more than that. And it's honestly completely fine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so at its core, what it is I like to say as like a tagline, it's like yoga for your deep core is what it is. And so what you do is you learn a deep dia diaphragmatic breath. So not belly breathing in and out, but actually utilizing the whole muscle of the diaphragm up and down and side to side, 360. If you've
Uh-huh.
ever, if you're a mom and you've ever hold your little, baby at the age that they can hold their head up, and you're just holding them around their rib cage and your whole hand is covering their whole, rib cage, you feel them breathing like this.
Uh-huh.
It's a 360 movement of the rib cage. And that's essentially what we're trying to get you back to when we teach you this deep diaphragmatic breath, because the diaphragm is this giant muscle that sits like an umbrella, like a parachute underneath the rib cage. And so it can get tight just like any other muscle. And from an emotional perspective, it's correlated to grief and sadness. So when we go through those grieving periods, it just starts to get stiff. So instead of moving up and down, it's only moving like this. That feeling that a lot of us have of like, I just feel like I can't take in a full breath. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like not only is the diaphragm itself tight, but there's so many muscles in the back and surrounding under the armpit, the muscles in between your rib cage. Those muscles are all God designed to assist in breathing. They're not just to show off in a muscle show. Like they're actually supposed to help us breathe. And so
Mm-hmm.
when those muscles get tight, everything is restricted around the breathing process. And so what low pressure fitness does is it puts you in positions where, for example, you're spreading your shoulder blades apart from each other, getting that space and then deep breathing into that space. What it does is it just like opens that cavity up. And not only is it stretching it, it's strengthening it from the positions that you're holding in. And that's what I mean by it can progress. You can put yourself in a lunge now and
Mm-hmm.
then do the same breath. Well, now I'm getting into a whole another series of muscles in the hips and the pelvic floor that is also supposed to move with your breathing. Things start to loosen up. And that's essentially what the technique of low pressure fitness achieves. A, and also it um, there's a million things I could continue to talk about with it as far as the benefits, but it also is a great technique in moving the lymphatic system, which is a huge, of course, topic in the cancer world because of how essential, there are some old doctors that say that every disease can actually be pointed back to a dysfunction in the lymphatic system. And so that is breathing acts like a pump for the lymphatic system to move up and down as it's supposed to naturally do. So the benefits of this get so on and on.
That's so interesting. And we specifically, just because we are breast cancer survivors, we're at a higher risk of developing lymphedema because they usually take the lymph nodes out underneath our arm. And depending on how many we've had removed, a lot of us do deal with that now and are trying to treat it or I prevent it, either one. But that lymphatic system, I didn't even understand what that did in my body until I got into this, situation and was like, now what now? Um, what was I going to ask you? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh, you talked about the kind of the connection to some of the emotional, like the grief and the trauma and stress. And you had shared with us that it's not uncommon as a result of that, that people have these sort of
Mm-hmm.
emotional breakthroughs while they're sometimes
Yeah.
learning this low pressure fitness. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Um, I'm just going to pause for a second. Whoever's editing this is your pause to edit this.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Because exactly, once we start to get things moving, that emotional release is like a current that's just been sitting there, chilling there in a certain spot. And the second that you can start getting that mobilization happen, it's like it gives permission for those emotions to move. Another system that's really important in the physical emotional aspect is fascia. It's becoming this like popular word, but the medical community, I'll speak on that, for sure does not understand this to the capacity at which how important it is. And so fascia is basically all the tissue that surrounds every single organ, even your spine. It's surrounding every single muscle fiber. So a quick little anatomy thing to further explain, to answer this question. So if you've ever seen like a cross section of a muscle fiber, like cut it, and it looks like Twizzlers that are like several Twizzlers that are like in this
Ropes.
bundle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have fascia that surrounds the entire bundle, and then you have fascia that surrounds every single individual muscle fiber, those Twizzlers. And so, and the best way to visually understand what fascia looks like is if you've ever had fried chicken, which I hope you have. If you haven't, go try some. But when you pick up that fried part and it's like that translucent, sticky part of the skin that was attached to the meat,
Yeah.
that's fascia. That's literally the fascia of the chicken. That's exactly what it looks like on you too. And so people think, well, like, there's that muscle tightness. Well, in reality, a lot of the time, what's actually tight is the casing that's around around the muscle. Because how can the muscle grow if what it's surrounded by is tight? And so, what's associated emotionally with fascia as well is it's the emotional current that runs throughout our entire body. Okay, so not only is there fascia surrounding all of these things, it also is like there's 4 different types of fascia. There's another fascia that looks like a spider web that's just like spread everywhere in the system. And it's this giant, like the lymphatic system, a giant communication system in the body because it's everywhere. So once that starts being stretched in movements like low pressure fitness, the emotions start to come out from that. And I have experienced it several times of like needing a pause in the middle of a session because all of a sudden tears started to come up to my eyes. Like if you've ever been in the middle of a massage and all of a sudden you started crying, you're like, I don't know what's happening. There's something releasing from the body. And it's so beautiful to witness that and have gone through myself of like, I am changed. I'm really changed after each of these sessions because it's giving my body permission to feel sometimes for the first time. And so, yeah, that's a really common event for people to have in the middle of a class is like some type of emotional release. And it's truly life changing.
It's
Interesting.
also transformational on
Yeah.
all levels.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff.
It really
Yeah,
is.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you said it's like, it's not just physically transformational, it's transformational on all these levels. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you had mentioned a practical body tool. Have we covered everything on this topic or are we good or anything
I
else?
think that's up to y'all. Yeah, if you have any other questions, yeah, we can go into a practical tool.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's do a practical body tool and then we'll wrap up with you can share how people find you and what type of um, payments and payment
All that
plans and all
stuff.
that kind of stuff.
Financial.
Yeah,
Sure.
financials.
Okay, so the practical tool is how I would actually start anybody off in a first time session, which is actually first going to be a lymphatic self massage. So this is going to be important for all you guys. I'm just going to move my camera so you can see my torso a little bit better. But what you want to do, and I'm going to put this up real quick. So the most important thing to do before you honestly do any exercise, if you're a person that uses one of those vibration plates, this is something you want to do before you get on that kind of device, or even before you go on a walk, like any type of movement. So you want as you all know, the big bundle of lymph nodes sits right here under the armpit. So you want to make sure that when you go into this, that the chest is open, or else you're not going to be able to get under there. Okay. And I promise this will apply to people who don't have lymph nodes there anymore. So just give me a second. But you want to start there, and you want to make your hand into like kind of as if you were like using the soft side of a butter knife, and make that shape with your hand. And you want to start up here and always go towards the heart. So you're going to go all the way down. I tell people to make sure that you come all the way down to the breast tissue, or where you can feel your rib cage there. So you want to make sure you cover that. And like I said, always towards the heart. You want to do that 30 times on each side. The next one you want to do is going to be from here, from the knee up towards the hip. Again, same hand thing, 30 times. And that's just like a very simple, you can do that every day, as it takes a minute. Okay. The other areas that you want to touch, especially if you don't have lymph nodes here anymore, which is, by the way, it's not a death sentence. So I just want to let you know the body is amazing, and that there are lots of other places where there's bundles of lymph nodes. One place is behind the knee. So you want to do the same thing. You'll stroke behind the knee, and you can kind of make a cupping shape with your hand and hit like that. Again, it's about 10 to 20 times. The other bundle is actually going to be above the stomach and also on the side of the liver. Same thing, the location does not have to be perfect, but what you'll want to do is you'll go in circles, and you'll do about 10 circles, same thing, cup, and kind of just hit like that. Yeah, so those are the main lymph places. Oh, no, there was another one more. It's the inner thighs. So right at the groin, you'll have to spread the legs, make the same thing, go upwards towards the heart again, this direction, same thing, cup the hands 10 times. So that's your lymphatic massage tip of the day.
That's great.
And I really recommend this.
And that's all to get things kind of just moving and flow, a little activated before you would go and do whatever exercise you're going to do.
Exactly, because most of us, our lymphatic systems are backed up. And so you have to do a physical movement to get it up and going. So when you exercise without that, if it's already backed up, it just kind of builds up. It doesn't really go anywhere. It'll just go back, and you can get sore in those spots. Like, if you've ever been swollen here, when you're sick, that's a lymphatic buildup.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you want to get that move. That's another great one to do, by the way, is stroking down behind the ear and down again from the ear down. And you'll do that both sides.
Could somebody do this like every day, even if they don't exercise? Is there any
Yes,
harm? Or
you want to. No. Yeah, you
okay,
want
every
to.
day, regardless, right?
Every day, regardless. Yeah,
That's so
absolutely.
good.
Especially actually if you're not moving, you want to make sure you do this to get moving.
Okay, get everything flowing.
Okay, that's not a low person thing. That's Monica needs to spread the message to the world that the lymphatic system is life. Give that tool to everybody. Okay. The next thing would be to then go into a diaphragm massage, and this goes into a low pressure fitness thing. So this is how I start everybody out, as this is always your take home homework. So easy to do. So the purpose of this is just to start literally getting the diaphragm massage and less tense, just like you would massage any other muscle. We're going to do that for the diaphragm. So you could do this lying down on your back, standing up, or even sitting in a chair. But what you want to start to do is come to your sternum right at the start of the rib cage up here. And you want to follow that line of the rib cage. And I call the technique piano keys. So you kind of start from there. I'm going to turn to the side a little. And I just follow the line of my rib cage. And I'm just doing these piano keys just with my fingers and following all the way down to where you can feel the last rib close to your hip. And even sometimes the floating ribs, so people can feel that down there. That's where you'll want to continue going. So you just do that a few times. And then there's a few ways you could do this. You could use a tennis ball, or you can still just use your hand. So again, I'd take that kind of nice edge of your hand. Same thing. Start from the top and go down. And then something that, don't push this too hard at first, because again, most of you are going to be tight, as I was in the beginning. So you really want to be gentle. The goal, the idea of just, again, mind-body connection is you almost want to be able to reach under the rib cage at some point to really actually feel the diaphragm. You have to get past that rib cage to even feel it. So eventually over time, you'll want to reach the pads almost of the first knuckle pad of your finger under that rib cage and then kind of move side to side like that.
Hmm.
I don't know if you can see how
Mhm.
far my fingers are
I'm trying
reaching
to.
under there.
Yeah, I could definitely see.
It looks a little scary, but I promise you it doesn't ever. Also, common is you might feel nauseous at first. That's common because you're literally pushing into organs. That's
Mm.
adorable. But eventually that's what you're wanting to do. And so once you can get there, again, you could be doing this with a ball, a tennis ball or a massage ball, and you could run that ball down like that. You find a tight spot, let the ball kind of sit there and do that. And so I really recommend trying this laying down on your back because you'll really be able to get better access. And so last tip on this is that when you inhale, obviously you'll feel the rib cage kind of move up a little bit, but obviously the lungs are taking up space when you inhale with air. So you inhale, and as you exhale slowly is the opportunity when the lungs are deflated to really be able to get under there because there's just more space. And so you'll want to do that and just give yourself that massage and do that, of course, on both sides. And that's the little practical tool.
So cool.
Wow.
That's great. All right. So tell us how people can find you and tell us, do you accept insurance or other payment plans for folks who want to work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't go through insurance, and that's on purpose because it has let people down more than it helped. That's on purpose, but I am HSA, FSA eligible, so you can purchase the medical services, which is the 6 or 12-month program on your HSA or FSA card. And then there are payment plans available as well through Affirm. So that's always an option as well. And I also just want to say that, if there's ever a financial barrier for somebody, all it takes is a conversation with me for us to work something out together because I never want cost to be a barrier for people who really need this care. So that's that. And then how people can find me. Everything is under the name Full Body Pharmacy, spelled exactly as it is. Instagram, same name. My website is fullbodypharmacy.com. And you can email me at Dr. Monica, Dr. Monica at fullbodypharmacy.com. And yeah, that's the main ways you can find me.
That's wonderful.
Wow,
Well,
awesome.
and I appreciate that. And, as you know, or you may not realize, but breast cancer is one of the most expensive cancers. So we always try to, when we love the wealth of expertise of having guests on here, but we always want to try to think about like the practical ways that we can help people get these services because it's not cheap to treat breast cancer. So
absolutely. Yeah. And that's the other thing, with the supplement care. And that's the other, one of the many advantages you get working with me is that discounted supplement care. I give my people the maximum discount that they can get on full script.
It's much appreciated. Thank you. Well, you have been so fun to chat with, and I've learned a ton. I feel like I learned a lot that I did not know before. So thank you for your time. We're so grateful.
A lot of notes here.
Yeah, we're so grateful for you
thank
spending your time with us today, and just look forward to partnering with you in the future. Thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you. Have a wonderful
Y'all are so welcome. Thank you for having me on here. The work that you guys are doing is really, really important. And I was drawn to you guys as soon as I met you at an event and your story behind developing bra. So thank you so much for what you're doing. My mom could have really used, a resource like this, 25 years ago. So I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thanks for that. We're grateful for you as well. So have a good rest of your day.
All right.
Thanks. Y'all too.
Bye. Awesome.
All right.